If you're listening to this and thinking, well, January didn't quite go to plan, I want you to take a breath because nothing has gone wrong. We're only a few weeks into the new year and already I know so many women are falling behind on goals, behind on health changes, behind on resolutions, behind on the version of themselves that they thought they'd be by now. And the truth is, January puts an enormous amount of pressure on us to reset, to fix, to resolve, to change overnight, to suddenly have clarity, motivation, discipline, and energy, all at the same time. But bodies don't work like that. Hormones don't work like that. Lives don't work like that. And real sustainable health definitely doesn't work like that. So in today's episode, I want to talk honestly about why it doesn't matter if you didn't start your resolutions or stick to them, or start those goals or health changes in January. Why giving up isn't a personal failure. It's often a sign that the approach never fit your life in the first place. And most importantly, I want to help you rethink how you plan what you want to change for your health this year in a way that actually supports you to feel better, not worse. If you felt pressure, guilt, or that familiar "here we go again" feeling this month as we start 2026, this episode is for you. Welcome back, or welcome to, if it's your first listen, Women's Health Unwrapped. I'm Nicola Farndell, women's health and menopause specialist, coach, speaker, here to support you building healthy habits that work for you so you can thrive through menopause and beyond. Now, we know that the vast majority of New Year's resolutions don't last beyond January. And that's been true for decades. The research is out there showing how many people give up by the 26th of January and certainly don't achieve those resolutions when they get to the end of the year. We're talking single digit figures for those who align and stay on track to their New Year resolutions. Most resolutions focus on what we're trying to do, not who we're trying to become. And think about it. We resolve to change overnight on New Year's Eve, to wake up on New Year's Day a new, different person who suddenly doesn't do that thing anymore, because most resolutions are about doing or stopping doing something we no longer want in our lives. And think about what January is like from a seasonal point of view. It's dark, it's cold, we've had ice, we've had snow, we've had rain, we've had wind, certainly if you live here in the UK. It's financially tight. How many of you right now are waiting desperately for your January pay to hit your bank account? It's emotionally heavy after December. Many of us have lots going on in our families and work to wrap up, to take a Christmas break. It's heavy, it's a lot. And for midlife women, our hormones don't reset on the 1st of January. We're still the same person we were the day before. Our energy, sleep and mood may already be fragile. And even though we might think we've had some time off work, if we're fortunate enough to take that over the festive season, I would bet that you've been full on doing cooking, shopping, sorting, cleaning, decorating, hosting, all of those things. So we can feel pretty frazzled. And resolutions often focus on, stopping doing something all of a sudden, or doing more, like I'm going to get fit, I'm going to run, I'm going to go to the gym, being stricter with yourself, fixing yourself. January isn't a clean slate, it's a continuation, and often a depleted one because we are in this winter season. Now, giving up isn't a sign of failure, it's often a sign of a mismatch. Think about if you have set resolutions this year or in previous years and why perhaps those resolutions have failed. Maybe if it is one or more than one that you've specifically set for 2026. Think about why perhaps you have already struggled to stick to that resolution. It's because often they're outcome focused. It's about weight. it's about your body shape, the aesthetics of the way you look. Or maybe it's about productivity, achieving something at work or perhaps at home in your family, being more organized. Maybe they're behavior heavy without support, like the diet. I expect myself to now eat this new way, but am I actually putting the support infrastructure in place to be able to embed that diet long term into who I am and how we live as a family in our home? Maybe it's that behavior heavy without support when it comes to exercise, that you just expect to be able to now work out 4 times a week, 5 times a week. But where's the support to become a person who does that? Or maybe it's in the broader routines and lacking support. And most of us women don't need more information. We need clarity. We hear the stuff, we perhaps have knowledge, but we need to get clear about what actually matters right now and understand what's draining us to be able to build the right support and put the right plan into place. For many women in midlife, energy, sleep, mood, and stress tolerance are already under a lot of pressure. So this January style to just do more often backfires. And I think there's rarely space in resolutions and this January New You approach for the things that actually matter, for stress. Thinking about perimenopause and menopause and what is shifting in your hormones, what's actually going on inside of your brain and body, the emotional load that you're dealing with, and the capacity that you actually have. You've had that often very busy, hectic run up to the end of the year with Christmas, but yet you expect suddenly to just be able to change and perhaps add lots of new habits into your life very quickly. And then I think a big thing that leads to us not being able to adhere to resolutions and sudden New Year change is that so much of what we're taught about being healthy is actually about control, controlling food, your weight, time, behavior. And when life or hormones change, that version of healthy just stops working. It's not something that is actually embedded into who you are. And then what happens is when a strategy like that doesn't work, well, we blame ourselves. Instead of questioning the strategy, we think we're the ones that are not capable, that we're not good enough, that we aren't able to create that change. And we throw the towel in, feeling pretty disheartened and, probably that we've let ourselves down. The research consistently shows that behaviour change fails when it relies on motivation alone. How many of you have ever said to yourself, I'm just not motivated enough? But have we considered the systems, the support that we need? Often not. We just think we need to find that motivation and pull it from the depths of our inner mind and body and be strong enough and have that willpower. I want you to think about this in a different way, because often the approach that we take to create change, and especially change that improves our health, is about fixing ourselves as women. That we need to fix the way we look, fix the way we think, perhaps fix our relationships, whether that's romantic partner relationship or the ones that you have with friends or in your family. We think of ourselves as broken and that we need to resolve to change to be a better, normal person, a normal woman, like everyone else we think we're seeing out there, especially when it comes to social media. And so you work on creating conditions where, this is what we need to do, create conditions where change can actually happen, rather than just trying to go all in very fast at the start of the new calendar, instead of looking at it as who are we becoming? What's that version of ourselves that we see for the future? And knowing that that's an evolution rather than correcting something that's wrong. So let's go at it from this different approach and actually enable change to happen. Now, this urgency many of us feel, and the external pressure to go all in January, and especially with health, make it a year, a full 12-month calendar thing, can really put a lot of pressure on you. As I said, a point in the calendar and point in our physical energy and resource where there is that misalignment. So I want you to think about health not being a seasonal thing. It's not something that we have to start at the very beginning of the year. And if we haven't, or if we intended to, but it hasn't materialized, then that means we failed. And what's the point? I might as well give up now because I've lost a full month of the year. So I want you to reframe that. You don't have to have started in January to have a great health year. Hear that message. What the body responds to is consistency. That is something I talk about all the time. And if you are a regular listener to the podcast, you will have heard me mention that word umpteen times. Consistency. Small, consistent steps help create lasting change and the ripples that give big impact, which is what we're looking for, isn't it? The body responds to safety. If we suddenly try to change and overhaul our entire diet or the way we work out, perhaps if we've not been exercising and then you start to do a lot of workouts, like that feels unsafe for the body, and it can respond in a way that makes you think you're just not able to do that thing and put that new way of living into place. But it's actually your body creating a physiological response in that it doesn't feel safe. Your body needs repetition. We are habitual creatures. That's why habits are your superpower. So repeat, repeat. It does take a bit of willpower. It does take discipline, which can vary depending on the thing you want to change and what you want to achieve. But consistency and repeating that new behavior so it becomes a habit, which is something that happens automatic, that's the key. That's what we're looking to shift towards. And do you know what? Some of the strongest shifts can happen in February, in spring, in September. There are so many points in the calendar or in our even seasonal calendar when for you that might be a better time. We're all individuals, and maybe you're into something like human design or one of the other modalities that looks at, when you were born, the time of day you were born, where you were born, or just who you are and your personality type. That can lend itself to you being more effective for change in a certain point in the year or a certain time when other things are aligned in your life that makes it work for you. So know that it's not all about having to do it just because we've literally flipped the calendar from one year to the next. I want you to think instead about getting clear on how you want to feel, not focusing heavily on motivation or willpower or being a really particularly strong, disciplined person. That can come, you can build and learn behaviours and support yourself to bring some of that in where it's needed. But instead, I want you to think about your future self at the end of December 2026. What is it you want to feel like? How will life be for you because of the changes you would like to make? And let that be the guiding light. If you like, imagine a lighthouse out on the coast, shining its light out for ships to stay away and be protected and avoid the rocks, the cliffs. Think about that light guiding you and let that shape those small, consistent, repeatable steps you take. Maybe ones that feel boring and perhaps ones that feel too tiny. Let them guide you, not what you did and didn't do in January. Look forward, look towards the light, and let that be the guide rather than what's happened over the past few weeks at the start of a busy 2026. So I want to help you get practical because I'm all about building those habits and taking action. And I want to do this to reduce overwhelm. So instead of thinking straight off the cuff, what are my goals? What should I be doing? Think about what I've just asked in terms of the end of the year and where you want to get to. And then think, okay, right now, what is it that feels hardest in my body or mind? What am I struggling with? And maybe it's something like energy crashes. Perhaps you're feeling that post-lunch dip, or maybe it's the mid-afternoon dip. It could be even the mid-morning dip. Maybe it's when you get home from work. Do you have that big crash in energy where you literally feel like you could take a nap, or perhaps that you just have to have sugar or do something else, whatever that might be, scrolling social media, maybe something that kind of numbs that low energy feeling you have, or you're looking for the opposite to get that dopamine hit and really boost your energy levels quickly. Perhaps you're someone who is struggling with sleep. And when I ask that question about what feels hardest in your mind and body right now, maybe it's just that you are fatigued, that you are struggling to get to sleep, to stay asleep, to have enough time in bed and get the quality sleep you need. It could be low mood. It could be anxiety. Perhaps you're someone that feels that kind of running machine inside of your body with the anxiety, sending you into high alert or keeping you there most of your waking time. Maybe you even feel it whilst you're in bed as well. It could be those mood shifts, big dips in how you feel, quite low, and then feeling elated and feel like you're just not yourself at all. It could be that bigger element of being disconnected from yourself, that you're just not feeling much joy, or you're not sure where it is you want to get to. It could be that you know where you want to get to, but there's a lack of consistency. Are you feeling that? You feel like everything's an effort and you're having to really push and shove yourself, and there's friction there. They're just a few examples of what might feel a challenge for you, and that you can really, if you take a pause, feel that in your body, that you can feel that in your mind. Often when we are struggling, we can know this thing logically in our mind, and tell ourselves that's an issue. I know I'm feeling anxious. But do we actually really connect from a body perspective and really feel what it is, what that emotion is, or what that behavior might be triggering inside of ourselves? It could be the racing heart. It could be just this feeling of churning. It could be maybe some digestive problems that you actually feel in your stomach. It could be a nervousness. It could be a temperature change. What does it actually feel like if you allow yourself a few minutes of calm, of pause, of being mindful, essentially, to feel that hard thing, in a physical sense? Just remember that habit change starts with clarity of where you want to get to, knowing that it's a process that is going to take time. It's not an overnight, I've made the decision, now it's going to happen because I'm just going to suddenly do this, or I'm going to stop doing that. It starts with relief, not ambition. And what I mean by that is just knowing that health is a journey. It's not something you have to suddenly decide to do and tick off. There is no finish line when it comes to health, which I think is a positive thing, not something to be daunted or feel put off by and let daunt you. Health is something that we will embrace and build into our lives for life if we are focusing on having strong health. So rather than it be a goal from an ambitious perspective of, I just want to be healthy this year, it's like, I am going to be a healthy person. I'm going to be a woman who values her health, and let it start from that point and start with compassion, with awareness, with self-support and love, and all of those beautiful words that we often forget to bring into our lives and give ourselves as women. So how do you plan your health changes without that pressure we often have had at the beginning of a new calendar year? This is something I want you to really think about and look at is, what should I be doing for my health? Instead of asking, what should I be doing for my health? Try asking, what feels hardest for me right now? So we've thought about what feels hard in your mind and body, but think about like, okay, what is then hard in terms of creating that change, and what would feel more supportive rather than demanding? And also, like, what would feel right for me? What fits with who I am and in the practicalities of my life, in how I work, if I have to look after the kids or other family members? having a partner, responsibilities in a home in terms of buying the food and getting the food on the table, washing your clothes, like all of these things that make up our life and what we need to do to be able to live, to get up, to function, to go to work and so on. I want you to think about, what is it that you can do for those health goals that is going to work in alignment with everything else you have going on. So therefore feels like you're really supporting yourself with intention rather than just, right, what should I be doing? We can all throw the shoulds, I musts, I need to out there. So work with yourself, work with the life stage you're at and those practicalities in your life, and also work with hormones. We really, really must, as women of any age, consider our hormonal life season we're in and the big role that those hormones play, not just the estrogen, the progesterone or testosterone, all of the hormones that work across our entire bodily system, called our endocrine system when it comes to hormones. We need to consider those and the fact that they all work intrinsically together, and our body wants to work in what's called homeostasis, which is essentially a harmonious state of being. So we must work with our hormones and just bring all of those elements of your capacity, your resource, the support you have in your wider family relationships and where you are in this season of life. And build habits that support your nervous system, not punish it. And I think often that approach at the start of the year to resolve to change something or just make this the year you become fit, or the year you run a marathon, or the year you start to eat healthy, or the year you cut ultra processed foods, like that can often be something that's very harsh, demanding, can almost punish ourselves, and really ultimately is not helping our nervous system to be regulated and balanced, which we absolutely need as we transition through midlife and all things menopause. Think about this as I come to wrap up. Approach it as, who do I want to be? And I want to be someone who looks after myself. It's not about needing to be better, or I should work out, I should strength train. Check in with who you want to be and why that matters to you. And maybe say something like, as a woman who is protecting her health, I will live long and strong. And know that the women who feel better long term aren't the most disciplined. They're the most compassionate and consistent. They're supporting themselves. They're really understanding what that plan and process looks like, as opposed to just trying to instantly change. And when I hear from women I work with or in my community who tell me they can't stay consistent and that they just don't have willpower, I tell them it's rarely about willpower. It's just that they're carrying and expecting too much of themselves, mentally, emotionally, hormonally. It's they're trying to change something in isolation. They're not bringing that bigger picture in of what's going on in their life, what they have, in terms of commitments with their work, with their career, with their family, and so on. Trying to navigate health change alone in midlife is hard, and it's not because you're incapable or because you don't have that strong superhuman willpower you think it takes. It's because your body and life are changing at the same time. The women who create lasting change aren't the most disciplined. They're the ones who stop trying to do it all by themselves and trying to do it quickly and trying to do it in a way that they believe is what it's about, which is driven primarily these days through social media. There can be a lot of helpful, great content on social media, but there's also a lot of noise when it comes to health, especially around menopause and midlife. So we need to do it in a rounded way, in that approach that is really going to take into consideration who we are, how our lives are, what our capacity and resources are, and then build the right plan from that perspective. So think about what I've shared and what this might mean for you. How have you started 2026? Have you set out with resolutions? Where are you at with those? Are they working for you? Have you done nothing with them? Are you already disappointed in yourself? And think about what I've shared to get clarity on where you want to focus first and what resources you need to give yourself gentle, sustainable, successful change. So to wrap up, I want you to know this. You are not behind, you are not late, and you have not failed your health this year. Health isn't built in January. So if you've done nothing in January and feel like you are behind or you have failed, let's shift that out of your mindset and thoughts. Health isn't built in January. It's built in the ordinary weeks. It's built in normal life. You want to build habits that are sustainable in the way you live. So let's focus on how you can do that. Okay. Bringing into consideration a full life, energy fluctuations, hormone shifting. Choose to keep showing up for yourself with a little more kindness and awareness. You don't need perfect goals. You don't need a clean slate. You don't need the calendar to flip over again to be ready to change. And you don't need to start again for anything meaningful to change. What you do need is clarity about what actually matters to you now. And I've given you some tips on how to do that. Looking forward to the end of the year, thinking about what you most need right now, and then give yourself permission to build habits that support your body and nervous system, not fight against them. So if this episode has helped you soften the way you're thinking about your health this year, that's enough for today. And if you'd like support getting clearer on where to focus without pressure, restriction or overwhelm, I'll share ways you can do that in the show notes. You can take my midlife reset quiz. That's a great place to start. Just literally a few minutes, totally free. And you get a lovely report on the back of that gives you some starting tips to begin to approach health changes without that pressure and with that kindness, compassion and clarity, which is absolutely key to successfully making the changes you want to thrive through menopause and beyond. I have lots of different ways of working with me. Something totally new that I'm really excited to share and start is in-person coaching. I have a couple of different ways to do that with me depending on what your goals are, and this could be a great way to get the right support and build a plan that is absolutely aligned to you and your life and the vision you have for it. That's in Newcastle upon Tyne. It's in Gosforth at a beautiful new wellness space. So if you are interested in that, of course, do reach out. Likewise, if you're interested in finding out how I can work with you, or perhaps with your corporate organisation, I can come in and work with your team, please just drop me a message. Now, as always, thank you so much for being here, and well done you for giving yourself this time and space to listen and to take on board the advice and support I'm giving you. I love having you a part of the podcast community, so I really appreciate you choosing this episode for listening or watching and choosing to value your health, not as a project to fix, but as something worth caring for. And final ask, share this with a friend if you think this episode will help her to also ensure she's living healthy, happy and strong. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.